thank you, Minister, for being here today. I wanted to start the questions with the Auditor General's report that came out earlier this month, and the report from the Commissioner of Environment and Sustainable Development had a pretty scathing report on agriculture specifically, and it stated that, Minister, you implemented agriculture programs and policies without proper consultation, incomplete measurements, and without any really clear plan or strategy. In fact, the report shows that you've achieved less than 2% of your 2030 overall greenhouse gas emissions targets. Now, you've repeatedly said that farmers support the carbon tax, but you voted against Bill C-234. You voted in favour of a carbon tax carve-out for home heating in Atlantic Canada, but not for farmers. And you've also voted in favour of quadrupling the carbon tax. Can you tell me, as a result of that report, what will be the emissions reductions from agriculture specifically when the carbon tax is quadrupled? What will be the emissions reductions? Has agriculture done that work?
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker, Mr. Chair, and I appreciate my honourable colleague's question and certainly appreciate the Commissioner's report and, of course, agree with the recommendations. There's no question that we need to do more in agriculture to reduce emissions, which we have invested $1.5 billion to help farmers innovate and reduce emissions. While we're actually under the development stage and sustainable agricultural strategy that will share vision for the sector's ambition over the next number of years. In fact, we're putting a sustainable agricultural strategy together, working with what we're trying to do is make sure we involve the agricultural sector. And that's what we want to do. And when we put the strategy together, we want to make sure that we continue to...
Are you measuring those reductions? Are you measuring the emissions reductions in agriculture specifically? And if so, what is the number? And if not, why not?
Mr. Speaker, of course, we are continuing to reduce emissions in this country, as my honourable colleague is fully aware, and we will continue to put programs in place in order to make sure that we do reduce emissions. And I can assure my honourable colleague that farmers in this country and ranchers in this country fully understand how important it is that we reduce emissions. We are reducing emissions and will continue to reduce emissions because we understand the problems of climate change, and if we do not address them, that puts massive costs into the farmers. I've seen the results of it right across the country, and Minister, it is massive, and we will continue to invest to make sure farmers are going to be able to make changes to reduce their emissions.
So you're not measuring those results, and in fact, your emissions have gone up, not down. But the fact is, you're not measuring those emissions. You're clearly saying that, but. So you don't know the number of the emissions that will be reduced. You don't know the impact on farmers, but the Parliamentary Budget Office was very clear that the reduction in emissions in agriculture will be negligible as a result of the carbon tax going up, and yet the cost to farmers is going to be close to $1 billion in 2030 when you quadruple the carbon tax. So the Parliamentary Budget Officer knows those answers, but for some reason you don't want to share them. But another one, it is my understanding that Government of Canada and Agriculture Canada has started to repay the money that it took from farmers for the fertilizer tariff, and in fact gave Solio $7.5 million to start repaying back farmers. It started redistributing that money, but then the Government of Canada came back and asked for the $7.5 million back. Is the financial picture of the Liberal government so bleak that you're having to take money out of the pockets of farmers yet again by asking for the $7.5 million that you owe farmers back again?
Thank you very much. I want to thank my honourable colleague, Mr. Chair, for the question, and of course it's a very important issue, and without any question I'm always on the side of farmers, and what we have to, there is a bit of a mix-up, and it's been evaluated at the time. And we want to make sure that, of course, the reductions, we know what we're dealing with the Ukraine war and the Russian fertilizer. Of course, I will work closely with the farmers in order to establish just what measures can be taken to be sure that they're properly refunded.
The war in Ukraine doesn't have anything to do with your department taking the money back after you gave it back to farmers and have now asked for a $7.5 million check back. It's embarrassing. But to the point with the Auditor General saying that Agriculture Canada has not been doing its job, I'm hoping that you have an answer for this one. Have you done any assessment on the financial implications of the capital gains inclusion change? What's that going to have? What impact is that going to have on the financial viability of farmers? Have you done that work? Have you done a consultation assessment before it was announced in the budget?
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair, and I appreciate my honourable colleague's question. And of course, all farm property is eligible for the newly increased $1.25 million lifetime capital gains tax exemption and deferral taxes when transferring a farm to a spouse or a child also will remain in place. Just to make sure, what we've done over the last period of time is to work hard to make sure, as we're all aware, it's a major issue to shift large farms, or any type of farm, in families.
Before
and what we want to do is to make sure that we're making it easier for farm families to be able to transfer their property so that they'll be able to continue in the agricultural sector. I know my honourable colleague is fully convinced and cares a lot that we're able to make sure that the young generation is able to take over without a lot of financial burden, and we will continue to work on that.
Thank you, Minister McCauley. Thank you, Mr. Barlow. I'll remind this committee and indeed all Canadians that the exemption on home heating oil applies across the country, not just Atlantic Canada. As one of the architects involved in that, I made sure it applies across the country. So just to make sure the record is very clear.